Mayor, I've got a serious issue here that I need to address at this time. I am the one who asked that the council reports be moved forward because we have a very public matter, and rather than go forward for the next couple of hours and ignore the 600-pound elephant that's in the room, I chose to address it and ask that it might be addressed early in tonight's meeting. Frankly, while people were still here and fresh and we could consider the issue. Mr. Mayor, 2 weeks ago today, you concluded our council work session with a word to the wise. As recorded in the minutes, we approved this evening for the work session. Mayor Osborne cautioned the council to be careful about what they write. They should state a position about policy, not people, because it is not productive. Mayor and members of the City Council, with sadness, I move that we publicly reprimand Council Member Larry Short for the misjudgment he demonstrated in authoring an inflammatory, distorted, and deceiving council report article submitted for publication to the South Valley Journal. His report was published under the heading, City Council Reports, South Jordan City Council, with a subtitle, Consider the Source. The newspaper containing Mr. Short's article was distributed to approximately 37,000 households and businesses this past week. Whereas the council report column within the monthly South Jordan Journal or South Valley Journal represents public property and carries with it the requirement of public trust. Given that individual council ideas, initiatives, learnings, reports, and noteworthy events are all appropriate material to be shared with public readers, recognizing that the publishing of outright distortions, suggestions of worst-case city impact from nondescript examples, the spreading of rumors, and the implication that our currently serving mayor and council members have private plans to undermine our current form of government are not only untrue, but contrary to the best interests of our city and shameful to our council. By using repeated language such as referring to readers as his friends, calling upon each to consider the source, which was repeated as the theme of his article, implying that individuals here seated were not to be trusted, and that he himself is the real source of truth and vision, and signing his diatribe as a concerned citizen, Mr. Short forsook his elected role and responsibility of public trust. Instead, his printed words mentally moved him from within our council to inciting disdain, creating confusion, and citing himself with unsuspecting readers whose interests in facts may have been overwhelmed by Mr. Short's mountain of fiction, an accusation against the very city and its leadership to which he himself belongs. In so siding against our council and with the people, he entreats to join his fallacious arguments and theories of conspiracy. Mr. Short not only impugned the good deeds and intents of each city council member, but purposefully positioned himself apart from us as a governing body, with the clear intent to erode public trust and plant the seeds of concern in a soil of falsehoods, which, if permitted to germinate, unabated, would lead residents of our city to think poorly of the work and progress we are making together, and themselves to perpetuate the half-truths and outright falsehoods espoused by Mr. Short at a time of his personal confusion and poor judgment. As evidence for your individual consideration, I present the following brief examples to support this public reprimand of one of our own members. Mr. Short deploys the slippery slope fallacy, citing vague references to support extreme hypotheticals. The beauty of this tactic is that no proof is required. It's an appeal to emotion by leveraging fear, simply rumoring that there were those within our city government seeking to establish a strong mayor form of representation with its attendant ills such as power, money, and political parties is a childish tactic. It is an untrue appeal to emotion. And for what gain? Another example of the slippery slope, according to Mr. Short's article, referencing conservative principles, as Mr. Barn recently did, from Ronald Reagan and the Utah Republican Party platform. He suggests this prohibits broad representation, reflects a narrow band of the political spectrum, disregards the best interests of our neighbors, ties us too closely to suffering wrought by our national politicians, and feeds the whispered conspiracy of a revolution to a strong mayor form of government, which would increase elected official salaries and be party affiliated. Wow. All that from a quote from Ronald Reagan, which said, "Freedom is the right to question and change the established way of doing things." In a classic straw man fallacy, Mr. Short exaggerates and fabricates the serious work and progress of our council. In an effort to make his own position sound reasonable to his readers, I quote, "Friends, I am afraid it is happening here in South Jordan. You should be rightly worried that one of the most discussed topics on the City Council agenda over the past year is compensation and power for newer members of the council and the appointed mayor. I see the council divided as they try to gain compensation and power. As stated previously, I know that our council is compensated fairly as we give service to the community. If a politician tries to tell you otherwise, say it with me now. Consider the source." Short on facts, this gross exaggeration has the markings of emotional appeal, money and power, but elements of the actual truth include: our council has worked diligently on wide-ranging issues, including budgets, development, water, fencing, public rights, animals, economic analysis and development, streets and public improvements, parks, debt management, development fees, and transportation hubs. Council compensation discussed surfaced about a year ago, and again this year, centered on the fact that council members are not compensated at the same rate. And in Mr. Short's advantage, which he has repeatedly defended in order to retain more money and more power himself. Mr. Short's testimony, quote, "I know that our council is compensated fairly," end quote, would have been most interesting if he had exhibited intellectual honesty and written, "I make at least 18% more than other council members, and I know that that is fair." Finally, on 2 occasions, Mr. Short referenced the fact that Mayor Osborne was appointed. For perspective, the first time this term, appointed mayor, appeared in print was about a year ago at the time of council budget discussions. During a rare Saturday meeting, flyers were distributed on the windshields of cars, decrying the fact that 3 council members and the appointed mayor were looking into the budget to determine if expenditure reductions would be appropriate. The flyer included the mayor's mobile phone number, a private number he had only given to this council and select city leaders. Stating that, quote, "the council appointed a mayor to fill the remaining term of mayor money," end quote, Mr. Short writes to his readers, quote, "This year it will be your turn to decide who the next mayor will be and what their intentions are for the city concerning growth, compensation, and power." If this were written in a political flyer sponsored by Mr. Short, my only conclusion would be that Larry Short is clueless about the significant progress our city and council are making together. But since this disdain, this insult, was written against our sitting mayor by a sitting council member in a column reserved for public purpose as a council report, this abject politicizing is not only a violation of public trust, but demanding of an immediate and complete apology. Therefore, for the conditions of this reprimand to be satisfied, I call upon Mr. Short to publicly apologize this evening in this meeting to the mayor, to the council, and to the city for his thoughtless and selfish printed remarks. I further call upon Mr. Short to write an apologetic letter to the editor of the South Valley Journal for publication in the May 2013 edition, referencing his lapse in judgment, scare tactics, lack of substance, and personal insult to the mayor, our council, and to the city of South Jordan. Absent these two actions, I move that Mr. Short be known as one in contempt of this public rebuke and its terms, should the council voice their agreement to my motions.
I'll second that motion and also add my comments that I agree with the statements that Councilmember Seataller has made. And while I don't have a prepared statement, I definitely agree with all of the points that you brought up. And furthermore, there were several parts of the article that were, I was left unsure of who they were addressed to and who on the council we were even talking about, such as the whispers and conversations that are allegedly happening to support a strong mayor form of leadership at this time in the city. And I'm also unhappy to be lumped in with the group as far as having conversations about increasing pay and benefits of the city council. I found it very hypocritical, in fact, to have that thrown out there. Let's see the quote here. As city council members, we do get a small compensation, but I would never expect to be paid a full salary or benefits for part-time service. I thought that was very hypocritical when, at least in 2008, in October of 2008, you voted to increase the pay of the city council in order to qualify for a retirement benefit paid for by the city. So to have that thrown out there as you taking the high road and the rest of us are bad, I really take exception to. And on top of that, we've had an opportunity 2 times in the last 14 or so months to take an increase, all 6 of us to take an increase, which would allow 2 of us to continue to qualify for that retirement benefit. And, you know, it isn't something that's readily known to me. I imagine that I could request and find out if you have taken the increases to continue to qualify for that benefit. But if you have in fact taken those 2 additional increases to qualify for the retirement benefit, I'd like to know that, and maybe you could apologize for that hypocrisy in your article as well. And it's already been addressed as far as the partisanship. The other hypocrisy that I note in that is that while you're chastising me for I assume, quoting a principle at the state Republican Party's platform that I agreed with in my article, you also say that that is not to say that elected officials should not act without principles. So on the one hand, you're criticizing me for stating a principle that I agree with, and then on the other hand, saying that we should act with principles. So I'm confused as to whether or not you believe that we should be acting on principle or not.
Also, should I answer these questions?
Well, initially we have a motion and a second. At this point in time, we now have an opportunity to vote on that. Inasmuch,
okay. Because I feel like that.
You'll have opportunity to respond after the motion.
Well, maybe I'll make a secondary motion.
That's fine. You certainly will.
Make a secondary motion that I make a statement.
That's not a motion.
What is it?
A motion would be that you would not pass this, or that you would amend what has been proposed. That would be a secondary motion.
Is that true?
Mayor, I think I would, if I would advise that the ruling would be that the motion, as long as it's pertaining to the subject that was brought up in the original motion, would be in order as a substitute motion.
So a motion can be a comment? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think his motion is that he be allowed to comment before the vote is taken.
Oh, is that what you meant?
That would be appropriate.
Of course it is.
Okay, that's fine.
Oh, I can do that now? Okay.
Well, do we need a second and a vote? Or?
You know, it's interesting how you guys interpret.
Point of order, Mayor. Do we need a second on that and a vote before we move forward with that motion, that substitute motion?
If it's done as a motion, it needs a second.
I will second.
Okay, we have a substitute right now and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Oh, did you want?
No, we're talking about
I know.
Mr. Short's motion,
yeah.
okay?
Are we saying then that this replaces the motion that Councilmember Seeteller made?
It would.
Well, that's a horse of a different color.
Let me make this easy.
Thank
Typically, with a motion and a second, under Robert's Rules of Order, you then have a debate on the motion before you vote. So you have a discussion on the motion and then you vote.
Okay.
So we
That
don't
would be
need
the
a
clean way to deal with it.
We have a motion and a second. At this time, we will open this up for further communication and discussion prior to actually taking a vote on that.
Well, that's great. It's interesting how you guys have all read your own interpretation of what you see in this. But, you know, I took this off of information that I had that you passed out as what we were going to do with this new ordinance we were going to do as far as the compensation committee. It's changed twice since that's happened. So I don't understand what I've come up with, that you've decided that these are bad. I've turned in my article way before you. I don't think there's anything in there that the public doesn't need to know. And I actually have some information that I would like to make public. And I think you read your letter into there, Mr. Seeteller. I'd like to put both resolutions in, the one that I wrote off of, the one that came out second, my article, your answer to me, as public information. And I'm going to give that to Mary Ann right now and make that public. And I'm going to put some copies out here for the public to see. So I'm entering that right now.